It's time for Congress to show some backbone and force American colleges and universities to ban fraternities and sororities. I laid out the case in my weekly column in Newsweek. The link's in the show notes if you want to read it. But I realize that a lot of people prefer to get their information from YouTube. So what you're about to see is a video adaptation of that article. I hope you'll check it out and think about the argument, because the existence of fraternities and sororities on college campuses is the kind of thing that we just take for granted. And we take it as a fact of life, but it doesn't have to be. It's actually one of those rare issues where we could, all of us, Republicans and Democrats and independents, find some common ground and make some change if we decided to. So let us know what you think in the comments, even if you disagree. And don't forget to subscribe to my podcast where we talk about things like this, and to the Cliff's Edge channel. Here we go. It was one of those soft, soporific, step in the right direction Washington moments that's become the norm for our bumbling shell of a Congress. It was also an unwitting indictment of America's inability to tackle hard truths. As one of his last acts as President of the United States, President Joe Biden just signed the Stop Campus Hazing Act, requiring colleges to report on the number of fraternity and sorority hazing incidents on their campuses every year. Does that do anything good? Sure, maybe. A bit more sunlight on a deadly danger that afflicts 3/4 of fraternity and sorority kids, probably not a bad thing. But let's not start dishing out profiles and courage awards either. What Congress mostly did was highlight its own impotence. In the face of schools allowing our best and brightest to be tormented, bullied, poisoned, and humiliated by outside organizations that are also responsible for lost education, hatred, and violence among our kids, Congress stepped in and asked for better record keeping. In related news, your local fire department just issued a report on how many arsons are currently blazing downtown. Why will no one say the obvious? The Greek system, fraternities and sororities on college campuses, is hurting our kids badly. It is a parasitic infection inside our institutions of higher learning that fuels binge drinking, racism, and of course, dangerous hazing among what's supposed to be the cradle of American leadership. Consider the frat report card. Greek membership lowers students' grades. It increases both the chances that a kid will develop substance abuse while in school and that they will end up with a lifelong alcohol abuse problem. Largely because of all the drinking. In one 10-year period from 2005 to 2014, more than 60 people died in incidents linked to fraternities. Uncounted thousands more have been injured, like the kid who was set on fire last year by 4 of his brothers. As mentioned above, frats have long been a hotbed of vicious, undiluted racism, a legacy that's lightly papered over today and yet still regularly breaks into the open. You really have to look at the article and click on the link for that. It's breathtaking. And being in a sorority makes a woman more than 3 times more likely to be sexually assaulted. If gangs were visiting this kind of damage on our kids, we'd call in the National Guard. When frats do it, we go to the movies, watch Animal House. So let's say what the cowards in Congress won't. We should ban fraternities and sororities, and we should have done it a long time ago. Now, to be sure, there are obstacles. Maria Konnikova summarized one daunting tally of them in The Atlantic. She said, fraternity men made up 85% of U.S. Supreme Court justices since 1910, 63% of all U.S. presidential cabinet members since 1900, and historically, 76% of U.S. senators and 85% of Fortune 500 executives. That's a lot of entrenched power, mostly inside our government. But there's a better chance of government acting against this vile status quo than waiting for colleges and universities to change. After all, the schools are in on the financial racket. Greek organizations own about $3 billion worth of real estate on 800 campuses, and they provide student housing that the university would otherwise have to pay for. Fraternity and sorority alumni are frequently among the most loyal school donors, so they have a loud voice in presidents' ears. And in some places, if all that financial pressure isn't enough, the frats simply annex power. At the University of Alabama, it's largely ruled by a shadow Greek organization called the Machine. If we want Congress to wake up, we can at least start by blowing up the lame excuses for perpetuating the system. The three you usually hear boil down to frats do good things too, change can't really happen politically, and we can't stop them. So first, no, Greek organizations are not a force for good. The claim that there's some academic benefit is specious. The notion that fraternities do a lot of significant community service is sophistry. Now, reliable figures are scarce, but the volunteer tracking service, Givefinity, shouts the claim that the Greek system is the largest network of volunteers in the United States. They raise over $7 million each year and donate over 10 million hours of volunteer service. But if you look at it, that works out to an average of about $1 and 1 hour donated per year per frat member. Fraternities are community service organizations in the same way that the Miss America pageant is a scholarship program and Captain Crunch is a naval officer. Now, second, the argument you hear is that you can't really do this politically, but actually there's a strong political argument that can appeal to both parties. For Democrats, fraternities are the most obvious protection scheme for white men, privilege, if you will, that's been ever created. Greek-affiliated students who we know are weaker academically actually make more money when they graduate. And that's because they already come from higher educated, better off families with bigger professional networks. So is that kind of engine of persistent inequality really a system that matches your values? For Republicans, look at what the key Trump allies, Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, are saying on this topic right now. Here's Ramaswamy. Our American culture has venerated mediocrity over excellence. A culture that celebrates the prom queen over the math Olympiad champ or the jock over the valedictorian will not produce the best engineers. So doesn't it sound like the MAGA brain trust is against the campus jockocracy and they might be into some bold bipartisan action to fix one of its dumbest manifestations? Third, here's that third argument. What about the constitutional protection for free association? Isn't Congress essentially powerless in the face of that? Well, no, not at all. For one thing, Congress just showed the power of jawboning academic leaders into cleaning up their act. What if Congress had the backbone to haul in the university presidents, like they just did on campus anti-Israel protests, to demand to know what they're doing to get these outside entities to stop maiming kids? Some of the top schools in America, including Harvard, Amherst, and Swarthmore, have partially or fully booted the frats off campus. That's because of pressure. Public pressure works. As for free association, of course, people can associate however they want. They can form clubs, they can join organizations, but the rest of us don't need to pay for it. How do you think Congress gets schools to comply with Title IX policy requirements? By threatening to withhold federal funds, which make up 14% of all college revenue. Congress could say, frats or funds, you choose. Enough is enough. There's a mountain of evidence that kids are suffering from a broken vestige of a system that produces no positive value. Seriously, what's the positive value? Our kids are not waving, they're drowning. Our government should be ashamed to be merely standing by, taking notes.